The purpose of this video is to illustrate how to take a document created on a Mac using the Pages application and export a copy of that file as a Microsoft Word document. I'll start by demonstrating the process, which is quite simple and quick. I urge you to stay tuned to learn a little bit more about how Pages treats the two different file formats and how to keep track of your file versions so you can be sure you are submitting or working with the most current version of your document. Let's get started. Here on the screen, you see a Pages document that's already been created. So the first thing you want to do is actually save the file. So go ahead and click on the File menu and click on Save. And let's give a name to your document. You'll see it's going to store it in the Documents. I'm going to call this one Term Paper, and I'm going to add a 1 at the end of it. And I'll explain the strategy of using the number later on when we get into versions, but it'll come in handy. Okay, so now this document is saved. You can see the file name up here, Term Paper 1, and it's saved as a Pages file. In order to export a copy as a Word file, go ahead, click on the File menu again, and go down to Export to, and you'll see when you point to it, a little menu pops up. Go over and click on Word. Okay, so you'll see Word is selected. If you click on the advanced options, it'll give you an option to choose the file format. We're going to leave it at .docx. That's the native file format for a Word document. Click Next. And we're going to still call it Term Paper 1. This way we'll have a file called Term Paper 1 as a Pages file and a matching Term Paper 1 as a Word file. Click Export and you're done. The file you see on the screen is still the Pages file. I'm going to go ahead and close Pages and go ahead to the Documents. Let's take a look at what we have in Documents. You'll see here there's a file called Term Paper 1 and another one called Term Paper 1, but this one here on the left, if you look up at the little icon up here, it says docx. That's the Word file, and this is the Pages file. It's as simple as that. I'll be back in just a second, and we'll talk a little bit about how Pages handles these two types of files. In this segment, we'll look at how Pages handles both Pages documents, or files. I'll use those words interchangeably in this tutorial, and Word documents. For a Pages document, it's simple. This is the native file format for this word processor. You create a document in Pages, and when you save that document, it is saved as a Pages file. Regardless of how many times you open that file and make edits, it remains a Pages file by default. Pages has the ability to open a Word document. However, once opened in Pages, it is immediately converted to a Pages file, leaving the original Word file intact. From this point on, the software treats the document in Pages as a Pages file. It may sound a little confusing, but using a simple version management scheme should take some of the pain out of it. Let's segue into the final segment of this tutorial, version management. All we've discussed to this point will be taken into consideration. Before considering version management, determine if it's something that needs consideration. Let's take the case where you have to write a paper for history class. The instructor gives you the assignment on the 1st of the month and would like you to submit your work on the 28th, and you only need to submit a single version of the document, the final version, which must be a Microsoft Word document. You would start by creating a new Pages document and begin working on your paper. You may start and stop several times before you have a first draft, then make several revisions along the way. But each time you go back to the computer, you are opening the same Pages document, making your revisions, then saving the file, storing the newly revised version. Once complete and ready to submit, you would export to a Word file as illustrated in the first segment of this tutorial, leaving you with two copies of the document, one saved as a Pages file, the other saved as a Word file. Now let's look at a case where you're writing a paper for an English class and you are submitting several versions or revisions along the way. In this case, you will want a way to keep track of revisions to ensure you are working on and submitting the correct version of the document. Let's explore a strategy for this scenario. Here is a document that I created and plan to submit as my first revision of my term paper. I'm going to save the file with the file number Term Paper 1, using the 1 to indicate that it is the first revision, and I'm going to save it in my Documents folder. Alternately, if you know you will have 3 term papers, you may wish to name the paper something like Term Paper 1, Revision 1. Whatever works. Go ahead and hit Save. So now Term Paper 1 has been saved as a Pages file. Since I need to submit this revision and it needs to be in Word format, I need to export a copy using the technique previously illustrated. What I now have is two files named Term Paper 1. One is a Pages file, the other a Word file. I'll submit that to my instructor. Now it's time to work on a second revision. I open the first revision, that's what's on my screen, and I make some changes. Now it's time to save the changes, but if I simply save the document and keep the same file name, what I will have is two files named Term Paper 1, but the Pages file will contain changes not reflected in the Word file. This can become hard to keep track of, and even harder if you work on the paper over some period of time. Rather than keep the same file name, let's name the revised version Term Paper 2, using the 2 to indicate this is the second revision of the document. Now if you take time away from the document, just a glance at the files in your Documents folder makes it much easier to distinguish which is which. To save as in Pages, that is, save the file with a new name, click the File menu, then press and hold the Option button and click the Save As option. Change the file name to reflect the new name of this document. We're going to call it Term Paper 2 and click on Save. You'll see up here the paper's been renamed. Now if I go ahead and I'm going to close Pages, open up the Documents folder. So you see a simple look here. You'll see you have two files called Term Paper 1 and only one called Term Paper 2. Makes it much easier to distinguish that you've made edits to it and you've not yet saved Term Paper 2 as a Word file, or that it's still in the editing phase. Once you've made all the required edits to the second revision and you are ready to submit the file, you can export a copy as a Word file, and now the file name will help you be sure you are submitting the correct file. Simply increment the number by 1 with each iteration of revision, and you have a simple to use file management system.